Get out of the fucking car. This must be the unluckiest NPC in all of gaming. Alright, let's start this. So, ladies and gentlemen, Double A Speaks here, back with another Far Cry analysis, this time traveling back to the world of Kyrat in Far Cry 4. As you can tell from the title, I think Far Cry 4 is great, no doubt. It's Far Cry 3 but done a lot better, but it just falls short of achieving the upper echelon of gaming, or even, the franchise having so much potential but failing to capitalize on a lot of it. So start from the beginning. Just like always, I'll give you a brief history of my experience with the game. I played it when it came out originally, and after the 1-2 punch of Far Cry 3 and Blood Dragon, Far Cry 4 felt very average in comparison. It sort of had the same tropes, the themes carried over from 3, while having the exact same gameplay loops and weapons, so I felt underwhelmed as I thought it needed some changes in the formula to freshen it up. But after finishing the whole game, I felt differently, as I found the story to be a vast improvement over 3 and the gameplay to be better, although at the time I couldn't really understand why. Now after replaying the game and having all the Far Cry games kind of fresh in my mind, I can see why the whole game is a step up from the previous entries. So first, let's go with the story. Here you play as Ajay Gale, a local Kirati that returns to his homeland in order to spread the ashes of his mom who died recently. And that's all you're given, as you are thrown into turmoil as soon as you arrive in the country, facing off against the main bad guy in the game, Pagan Min, who is simply the best antagonist in the whole series. Yes, even better than Vaz the Crazy Man. You later join a group of rebels called the Golden Path, led by a dude called Sabal and a girl called Amida, who have problems of their own with differing ideologies, battling out for the soul of the country. Yeah, that's like the whole gist of it. You are placed smack dab in the middle of this whole conflict, and the choices you make affect the nation's future. Like all the Far Cry games up to this point. Immediately, this is a step up from the previous entries as you go through more of a personal journey in a war that is linked by your blood. You see, Ajay's father is the guy who started the Golden Path, while his mom was allegedly in an affair with Pagan Min, leading to the start of this whole war. This makes the conflict feel very personal and elevates the narrative from you just being a guy who's trapped in a jungle or like a mercenary in Africa, because your actions in Kyrat feels like you have real stakes. Ajay and in turn you have to decide who will lead the Golden Path and what ideology better suits you, as Sabal is a religious fanatic willing to do anything or kill anyone to preserve tradition and resist change, while Amida is a radical futurist willing to burn the country down in order to destroy tradition. Sound a little familiar, right? So like real life, there is no clear good or bad guy, as even Pagan seems to have a method to his madness, and out of all the characters seem to be the most polite and welcoming of AJ.
Honor, Paul, our very gracious host, the little monkey, whose name I still don't know, and I, of course, Pagan Min. You really don't remember me?
I have to say, even though the story has its issues, and a lot of issues, it's still the best one out of all the Far Cry games. Although originally I felt this story to be too similar to 3, I now see that they're polar opposites of each other, with this one having overall the better story and characters. In 3, you play as a so-called douchebag who goes through a nest of pirates and kills and pillages his way into becoming the ultimate warrior, so you can sacrifice your girlfriend and have sex with a mystical native and shit.
The Rakyat will be reborn. The ultimate warrior.
And I will get to that game later. But overall, that game didn't feel as genuine, as the game was heavily criticized for perpetuating the myth of the white savior. A lot of people said Jason going into a post-colonial island to tame the natives, as a white guy could do, felt very off. There is an underlying theme running throughout the first couple of Far Cries of how colonialism and Western interference has essentially ruined the countries that your characters participate in, like war-torn Africa, having a literal CIA agent causing destruction behind the scenes. Well, in 4, you're not the typical American hero who has come to kick ass and chew bubblegum. Now here, you are a native of the land who has come back in order to face the consequences of your ancestors' actions that has turned his native land into a place of corruption, greed, and death, where the people are dirt poor and oppression is commonplace. It's a classic sins of the father and now the responsibility of the son dynamic, and it's great. Also, the game features a very heavy mystical and psychedelic side to it, as you frequently get high with these two dudes called Yogi and Reggie, and the missions you participate in is very trippy. It ups the psychedelic factor from 3 and adds a mystical spin on it, as it draws inspiration from Eastern cultures of India and Nepal. The game features a whole side story in the form of missions called Shangri-La Valhalla, where you change characters and play as a mystical warrior of legend called Kaldanag who controls a goddamn tiger, uses a bow and arrow, and faces off against a horde of demons called the Rakshasa. This is a game within a game and is a nice sidetrack from when you're tired of all the shooting and looting, and features a more thought-provoking and experimental stuff than the main game. This was clearly the inspiration behind Far Cry Primal. And now we come to the meat of the whole thing, which is the gameplay. In one word, the gameplay is fun. As a person who enjoys these games for the shooting in conjunction with the sandbox elements, I feel Far Cry 4 gives you the most bang for your buck here. First of all, the gunplay is the best in the whole series, even counting Far Cry 5, as the weapons look, sound, and feel better in every way. Just look at an assault rifle here and 5. Crunchy is fun to shoot, which should be a basic in an FPS game. The map has more maneuverability thanks to the addition of stuff like the grappler, the wingsuit being more accessible earlier in the game, and one of the best vehicles I've seen in an open world game yet, the Far Cry 4 gyrocock. This one-man helicopter looking device single-handedly saves the minutiae of traveling through such a vast world and makes unlocking towers and outposts and stuff a breeze. The missions and outposts is more approachable than all the previous games, as you can sneak about and kill people, sneak about and snipe people, sneak about and knife people, go in guns blazing, or my personal favorite, run an elephant into an encampment and shoot everything with a machine gun. Again, this game is the most fun you can have in a Far Cry game and has twice the amount of weapons from Far Cry 3 and probably 4 times more than 5. The game hits the perfect balance of the Ubisoft formula we all know and love, hate, with beautiful graphics for the time and when they just about perfected the gameplay. With Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Watch Dogs coming out in the same year, they just about perfected the Ubisoft, climbing towers, tedious mission thing, before it all turned to shit with stuff like this.
Jeez, ain't I cute? Oh shit, I was gonna do that.
Oof. So on the surface it all sounds great, but it's really when you take a deep dive that things start to fall apart. Sticking with the gameplay element, my main problem with this game is the lack of immersion, which I keep going back to with all the Far Cry since the second one. This game is the most guilty of them all, with constant flashing bodies everywhere, ticks and markers littered throughout, and look at this HUD, let's look at it, it's so busy. And also look at this minimap. It leaves little to explore, with every animal, object or collectible being literally marked on the map, which provides no motivation to explore. Contrast this to a moment from Far Cry 2 and look how minimalist and clean it all is. Even though the graphics are simpler, you don't care as much as it makes it more immersive. So the gameplay fails at immersion, which is one of the key things the best open world games should have. Also, this game was way too easy compared to some of the other games in the franchise. Even when you're playing on hard, you can clear out objectives very easily, especially by the midpoint when you acquire some OP weapons and game-breaking skills. It shares this quality with 3, but at least this one makes up for it in variety. Going back to the story, although it's set up very well, the game falls short in its execution. Foregoing nuance and replacing it with empty grandiose and tone-deaf humor, the best character in the game is again the main villain Pagan Min, played by the always excellent Troy Baker. But he's in far less than I would have liked, and his generals and the rest of the characters, while interesting, lacks any kind of depth. Take for example this guy Longinus. The guy supplies the rebels with guns and is supposedly a character hailing from Far Cry 2's unnamed African setting, and while there are hints of trauma and bloody backstory, it's not fleshed out at all. All he does is makes you collect some blood diamonds and vaguely references all the crimes he did to possess them.
I come from a land of death and misery, and I stood with the devil for so long.
But he lacks the depth to be one, often just quoting Bible text and mumbo jumbo with barely a reaction from AJ.
But there are no empty words for you, but your very life.
The choice system from Far Cry 2 returns in the form of you choosing to side with the far right Sabal or the far left Amida, and the game does a great job at highlighting both their good and bad sides, but again without any nuance or depth to their characters or motivations, something which plagues the franchise as a whole. Both their goals ultimately seem like a hindrance, and I would rather choose Pagan Min, who is far more charismatic and interesting and fun choice. But the game lacks that freedom, forcing you to go down these linear paths. It has the illusion of choice, but lacks any dimensions to truly expand the freedoms. I know it's not an RPG, but these small gripes kinda add up to crumble the excellent game that it could have been. By this point, Ubisoft has become this whole big company churning out these games every year, so it always played it safe, and for that reason this game loses the experimental and dangerous feel that the second one had, leading it to be just short of becoming truly great. If you merge the gameplay and tone of the second game with the story of this one, with some better writing, it would have created the perfect Far Cry. So here's to hoping the new one comes close to this, but somehow I doubt it. So all these imperfections weigh the game down and makes it fall somewhere right in the middle of the whole series. It's the game you would recommend, but only if it's on a sale or something, not a must play by any means. So that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and for more Far Cry content, please share, subscribe, like, I'll do all the good stuff. As next, we go to the distant future of 2007 in Blood Dragon. Hope you all stay safe. Peace.